Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for that introduction, David. I was delighted to agree to step in where the Minister feared to tread. Having looked at the list of attendees here this morning, you offer a fearsome range of expertise. And I have no doubt, however, that you are disappointed that there won't be any ministerial announcements here this morning, because we're desperately in need of ministerial announcements on micromobility. Those announcements are long overdue, although the recent report is very welcome. The revolution has happened while ministers have prevaricated, and their only line of defence seems to have been that e-scooter trials are taking place. But these are, to be honest, the longest trials I've ever encountered of any kind of technology. But clearly, these modes of transport, these new modes of transport, can't be uninvented and have instead to be incorporated into the modern jigsaw of travel and as safely as possible. Now, I must lay my cards on the table. My only ever e-scooter ride, very tentative, was, however, great fun. And if I was a young adult, I would probably be a regular rider. And e-bikes are a wonderful invention, particularly for encouraging older cyclists back onto the roads or to continue cycling. But whatever form of micromobility you look at, they each pose challenges on both sustainability and safety. And the longer these new inventions are allowed to drift on without specific regulation, then the more difficult it will be to impose order on the chaos, because it is like the Wild West out there. In the audience today, there are, I note, a number of representatives from local government, already overstretched. This is yet one more thing that they have to grapple with. It is actually surreal that in modern Britain, we have a situation where every day in our towns, we watch otherwise law-abiding people knowingly breaking the law by riding e-scooters, for instance, on the public roads and pavements. Yet we know, and they know, that they will be tacitly allowed to do so. The only organisations developing rules seem to be the train and bus companies, fearful of fires from exploding batteries. And today in the news, they are covering the issue of fires from exploding batteries on e-bikes and e-scooters. And they mention that the fire service is also stepping in to provide guidelines and safety rules. There is, of course, loads of research going on in universities, as well as a growing pile of official statistics on accidents. And our particular thanks must go to PACTS for their contribution, both in organising today's conference and, of course, for their excellent report, which will be part of the discussion today. Now, as you know, today it features sustainability and safety. I think e-bikes are a much more straightforward issue, with a general view that the big question we have to answer in the UK is how fast should they be allowed to travel? But sustainability is a complex issue in relation to e-scooters especially. Their green credentials are, to be honest, quite hazy, as I believe the ARUP report effectively shows. CO2 emissions arise from the whole manufacturing process, especially batteries. Battery recharging and the collection and distribution process for hire scooters are carbon intensive. And it carries through to end of life and disposal. And the life of a hire scooter can be remarkably short. About a year, research shows, during which they're likely to be ridden for only a few hundred kilometres in total. So claims that they are green often rest on the assumption that they replace car journeys. But there's firm evidence that they much more frequently replace public transport use or walking and cycling, all of which are, of course, more eco-efficient. The age profile of users also means that they're often not car owners. When in London, I live overlooking what was the site of a docking station for one of the trials, so I regard myself as a bit of a mini expert. It was absolutely clear that the majority of users were simply playing and having fun. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but it's impossible to argue that it was an alternative to car use. So what about safety? Evidence shows that e-scooter accidents are more likely to lead to injury than cycle accidents. In the year to the end of June 2022, there were 1,349 recorded collisions involving e-scooters and 1,437 casualties, including 12 deaths. Of those who ended up in hospital, between 20 and 50% had head injuries because very few riders wear helmets. So the numbers are rising rapidly, obviously, along with the increasing popularity of e-scooters. But there's no need for the numbers to be anything like as high as they are. There's so much that could easily be done to improve safety. Some European countries have had legislation since 2019. So you've heard of fantasy football, people. I offer you a fantasy ministerial announcement of comprehensive legislation on e-scooter and e-bike safety, as well as rules on where you are legally allowed to ride. I would incorporate regulations on helmets, minimum age, maximum speed, lights, insurance, and the usual rules on drugs and alcohol. I would also upgrade technical rules on the design of the vehicles to make them safer, because they can be safer. And if that sounds too comprehensive for you, I remind you that over 1,000 of the e-scooter collisions in 2022 involved another vehicle or another person. They deserve to be protected by an insurance system and a comprehensive system of regulation. Now, we can argue the details, but the principle must surely stand firm to make our roads and pavements safe for e-cyclists, for e-scooter riders, and for the pedestrians and other road users. Then we must tame the Wild West and do it as soon as possible, because the longer we leave it, the more difficult it will become. So with those thoughts, I wish you all well for an interesting and informative conference. And again, I thank PACTS and David Davis in particular for their leadership on these issues.